Oh, that was quick. That was the quick intro. Need to make sure. Let me make sure my audio is on so that I could be heard. Guys, we appreciate. Hopefully, you're hearing me. This is live. Appreciate you all for checking into Community Beacon. The brother stepped away for a moment. It's a 6:30, and we haven't been like live on uh this stream in a while. So I'm excited to hear what we're gonna get into. We haven't spoken about it. We rarely do. Um, but I'm sure it'll be interesting. Brother, what's going
Yes.
on?
All is well, man. All is well. This was kind of interesting today. This is kind of interesting because you and I were normally like, oh man, text 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes there were some early ones. I know there were some early ones at some point in time, 5:30, and then sometimes like 7 or 8. Like, when are you gonna be available? And
Yeah.
today it was just, hey, I see you at 6:30. That
Let's
was
go back
different.
to the 6:30 days. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you fit me in. I know how busy your schedule can get and how productive you are as you maneuver and move through the day. I as well maneuvering and productive, and there's always, what's interesting, and this is why you have to give yourself a break in time. And this is, I'm sure this just goes beyond. This is just life in general. Is that there's always something that could be done. And
Mm.
when you're around productive people, sometimes we need to assess within ourselves, like, okay, this could wait till tomorrow. Like, this is not high
Mhm.
priority. Come figure out whatever your priorities are. And guys, we are live, so I see someone checking in now. So if you're checking in and you can hear us, hopefully you can hear us. We can hear each other. I'm sure you can hear us. Feel free to type in the chat, give us a hello. We appreciate you. Even if you come in after the video is done, you're seeing a replay of this. We appreciate you. Okay, so getting back to it, guess what? Totally forgot to upload the episode last week.
I
So
saw that.
so and I'm gonna tell you, it was interesting because we did it on a Thursday. So I had 24 hours or more than 24 hours to put it up. I know you, because matter of fact, you
we,
had
we, we,
well,
we, we.
well,
I didn't
well,
help in
I
that
know you
piece.
jumped on the road, right? Like you jumped on the. I remember you jumped on the road because we were on the phone for a little bit afterwards. You jumped on the road to
Yeah.
Boca. So long story short, I remember like kind of just laying. It was like 4 o'clock, and I was laying in the bed on Friday afternoon, like preparing for like an afternoon nap, knowing that we didn't have to do the show. And I was like, did I post the show? And I'm like, and so here's the biggest excuse was the brother's gonna post the show. So I said, all right, let the brother post the show. And of
Yeah.
course on Saturday I was like, ah. And then Sunday I was like, ah. I was like, well, guess what? We got one in the can for.
One in the can.
Yeah, but it was a good show though. It was a good show, and
It
I'm
was
messing
fun.
around with it on some of these AI podcast editing, video editing tools just to see what it comes out with. It came out with an awesome description, some clips from the show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let AI cut it up and just, do a trial run and see how that works, because if that allows us, because I did get some feedback in regards to our show. So shouts out to Nicole. She gave some feedback in regards to the show.
Yeah. What
And
she say?
what she was saying, that possibly to put in some notes, cut it up.
Mm.
I think people want to see things time stamped. And I guess to do justice for what it is that we
She was
do,
talking about going professional.
going pro. For to give us, because we can.
She wants us to go pro, bro.
Yeah, yeah. She
She's
said
like,
go
don't be
pro,
just doing
go pro.
yeah, go pro.
So,
That's all
but
right.
I
That's all
mean,
right.
for respect for what it is that we do, and there is some, especially last show. I remember last show having some really, really dope moments and dope clips and a lot of gems, things that I left from our conversation just to kind of, integrate. Because a lot of oftentimes we get into these deep conversations and it takes some integration. I mean, we end up going pretty deep, and we're telling a lot of this into our story, and how can we make ourselves better, so that, and inch by inch makes it a cinch. So every day my plan is to get at least a 1/4% better, if not a percent. If I'm not maximizing it, if I'm lazy, I at least want a 1/4% of lazy to get better. So anyway, so she did mention, she gave some awesome feedback where to find the show. So there's some things that we could think about to make it easier. She's like clips from the show she'd love to see, but she does tune in to all of the show, and I'm like, oh,
Does she? She's
yeah, yeah,
tuning
yeah.
into every single thing that's going on, huh?
She's listening to us ramble on like old men at the
I like
you
that you said that. I
know?
was talking to one of the guys at the fire department just the other day, and he was so funny, man. I'm sitting there talking with him, and he's like, "Yeah, man, we just started talking like some old school girls." I said, "Why's it got to be schoolgirls?"
Nah, why it gotta be schoolgirl?
Well,
I-
you know.
Men talk too, but we do use certain
Oh man,
language
I
that.
lost my sound.
Uh-oh.
I lost my sound, brother.
Well, I can hear
Let me
you.
bring it back. Bring it back.
Yeah, yeah.
Bring
Let
it
me
back.
let me let him know, because what he's doing,
Bring it
he
back. All right. How
he's
about now?
I can hear you. I heard you the entire time. I think what's going on is that it's switching over to the mic in the microphone that you have. Okay,
Mm.
let's give these people something. Because we're fighting through some technical difficulties. I don't know, brother. What's on your mind? What's going on? Did we lose him again? Yeah, I think we did. Um, and I don't know if I should. I'm waiting to get him back. Are you there? No. Uh-oh. And I can't help him. Oh gosh. Guys, again, if you're checking in, um, please say hello, ask us anything. We're here just kind of chatting and chewing it up for the next 18 minutes.
Mm-mm. Let's see what's going on here. All right, you can hear me, brother. I'm going to back out and come back in.
Yeah, no problem, brother. So if you all have any questions for us, anything like that, please feel free to ask. It's nothing specific that we were going to talk about today. Um, I could talk about a little bit about what I'm working on in regards to just some self things. I don't know if a lot of you guys know I do NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and I use the self concept model. So, one of the things that we do within the self concept model is that we work on qualities, and qualities are related to value. So, your value could be trust. And so, a quality that you could work on with trust, from that value, would be trusting. Trusting within yourself, and when you're doing this model, it all has to do with your inner being. So it has nothing to do with anybody else. So you could be this value. I mean, this value is probably high. These are one of the higher level values, would be trust. And so you would work on trusting yourself, trusting yourself to be yourself, and when people let you down, to still not lose trust in people. And what it is essentially does is it shows you how that you are being this quality. Are you back, brother?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, 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 loud and clear.
All right, there we go. There we go, man. Hey, listen. When that type of stuff happens, it generally means that it's going to be a great show. That's
Yeah,
what we've
yeah,
learned in
yeah.
the past.
So I was telling the people that I'm working on the quality of in the self concept model, which is NLP, neuro linguistic programming. So a part of the things, some of the self work that I do, you work on different quality. You can work on different qualities, and the qualities tend to stem from whatever values. So for instance, a value would be trust. Some people
Mhm.
highly value trust. That's one of something in their top, something a higher level of value for some people. So for some people, and for everybody, most people, but just depends on where it falls in. And so a quality from trust would be, because trust is the value, a quality would be like trusting. So are you trusting? Are you, and this has to mostly do with yourself. So you can, so some people find these qualities ambiguous. And a lot of the at times when we figure like we don't know whether we're trusting or whether we are trusting, that's what you call ambiguous, because sometimes you feel you are, sometimes you feel you aren't. So you would rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10. And if you rate yourself a 5, that's ambiguous. You really want to be 7 to 10, where you are that quality. So this week, one of the easier qualities that I worked on came from prosperity. It was the value of prosperity, and the quality of it was being prosperous. And I to be honest with you, I can't really, don't feel like I'm not prosperous, or was it necessarily ambiguous. I do feel prosperous. However, what it allowed me to do was to like really define that quality for myself.
What
I
is
mean,
prosper? What is
yeah,
prosperous?
yeah. What is prosperous to me? What
Mhm.
and more when I say for myself is like, what do I look like? What are the traits that involve Michael being prosperous? And so when
Mhm.
I went into Chat GPT, which is my favorite, or maybe it was Gemini AI. Anyways, I love these different AI large language model platforms, because you can just like go back and forth with them and just kind of see what the zeitgeist is saying about these things. But one of the definitions that I found for prosperous in regards to Gemini AI, as I started going back and forth with the model, was growth and vigor. And so I kind of put prosperous with the value of prosperous with the value of abundance. Like prosperous is just a part of abundance. Abundance is just a bigger, I think abundance encompasses prosperous. So, but now when I added the prosperous to it, it also made the value of abundance more strong for me, because of that growth and that vigor. So as we go, you go through these different steps of making your quality what they call certain and solid. And we kind of talk about that a lot when we start, because it's really about strengthening your identity. So
Mhm.
when I added the growth and the vigor to it, and just walked around in that being of growth and vigor as a part of prosperity, and just being prosperous, man, it was one of the fastest transformations I ever had. Once again, it wasn't necessarily ambiguous or not to me. I was prosperous, but what it did was it heavily defined it. So I said that all of that to say this, is that maybe we could talk about gaining clarity, and
Mm.
how as we begin, or as a person begins to gain clarity on things, um about what it does for them. I think I got a couple things to say about that. But what about you, bro?
I like it. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. But the first thing that comes to my mind is traction.
Okay.
Traction. I'm always thinking about. I'm not always thinking about, but I'm forward driven. I'm just a forward driven type of guy. I'm a forward driven type of guy who just does not believe that I can't.
What do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from. I think it's bloodline. It's what I've seen. It's it's my mother and her tenacity. It's my father and his teachings. You know, how to be resilient, how to move forward. It's my experience over time. When I think about the last 2 decades, the things that I thought I had failed in, when I took, and we talked about this before, when I took a look back 20 years, there was a lot of things that I felt like I failed in during that period of time. But then having say it was 15 years ago, something I failed in. I don't have an example to give right now. 10 years ago, I superseded whatever it was that I was attempting to accomplish 15 years ago. But I couldn't see it 15 years ago. I probably didn't even notice it 10 years ago. But when I did my look back from point 20 years, now I see. I thought I failed that, but I kept going. I was like, oh, I failed it, whatever. It just didn't work out, whatever. And I just kept working and kept working and kept working. I probably wasn't even attempting to hit that goal anymore. And then now that I've got more time behind me, I look back and I'm like, oh, you know what? I actually did hit that goal. I actually did do
And that's
that.
something.
And it's like, so clarity and traction, I think if we put the two of those together, then when we have clarity, see, I was walking in a period of fogginess, but I wouldn't stop. It's like, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but I'm going forward. I don't know how I'm going to make it, but I'm going forward. I don't know if this is even going to work, but I'm going forward. And so I guess I want to say that there's two different parts to clarity as I'm speaking this out loud. One of them is being clear of your direction, and another one is being clear of your destination. And I don't think that those are the same. I think that they can render two different emotions, and they can change the type of traction that you have. But I think that when you have clarity, you can feel it, you can sense it through the traction, through the movement, through the motion. You can feel clarity as you're going forward. This is dropping on me right now. So,
I can see that and understand. And I would almost say that it's natural. It's interesting because I had a conversation with someone. One of the most and this goes with all of it is we got a saying in how we met, and it's where I left you is where I find you, and that part has been really going, playing around in my mind because it helps with for my empathy. It helps me to be empathetic to the way people, to the way we do things as human beings. Because Lord knows that human nature, we think we're smarter than what we are. I heard Lil Duval say that. Yeah, I think your volume cut out, brother. Um, and so, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, you okay.
I got a dual role going on. Don't mind me when I do that, brother. I got the IG live going on, and somebody's jumped in, so they're listening to our conversation too.
Okay. Awesome. Hey, listen, the man does it all. He does it all.
Take it down, man. We're talking about this clarity and this traction, and
right. So I believe for me, when I was in that mode, a lot of it had to do with me, falling forward. Movement is powerful, and so if you ever feel stuck, sometimes you got to move just to make sure you're still alive, or just to make sure that you can move, because it's times when we spoke about this last week, and you all will get that show at some point in time. I don't know when we're going to drop that episode, But when we talk about the stillness, depression, and then like making an adjustment and learning how to discern between the three, the two really was at the time you were speaking about the two things was really depression and adjustment, so to speak, because as we spoke about the time loop or the time. So there's a we talk about they talk about this in the Bible. There's a time for it, right? There's a time for moving forward. I do think there's a time for us just to be still and gain clarity.
Yeah.
When things get very could get overwhelming. Things could possibly in your mind not look like it's going the way it should be going. If you're an entrepreneur, you're like, man, I'm doing all these steps, and the bank account is looks like just dwindling versus it's getting bigger. You know what I mean? So there's time.
Great point.
But there is a time for us to reflect because we do have this thing that sits here, right? This thing that allows us to make adjustments and to see, okay, I can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. You know, some people have said that that was insanity. So, but the thing that we have to place there is the discernment. Um, so for me lately, what I do is I take more time being still than actually like moving. And to some people it may seem as if okay, like nothing is happening, but to me it's just a time for me to observe and then discern. So it's observe and then discern and then move if I need to move, or kind of just recalibrate, so to speak. So I find a lot of and that helps me gain traction, right? So traction, I guess, doesn't necessarily have to be just moving. It could be the stability of something. You know, I think a person would have to define it for yourself. What helps you to, get to this destination or get to the direction or get, or at least sometimes I got to stop just to go in the right. Maybe I'm headed in the wrong direction.
You okay, so there's a lot of books now about the hero's journey. And I think that it's really neat because I never realized the hero's journey. When I was younger, I didn't realize that. I love action films. I love them, you know. And at some point in time, I began to realize it's like, okay, this is what's going to happen. You know, this guy's going to come into the screen. He's not going to be that affluent, or he's not going to be that strong, or he's not going to be something. He's going to be very commonish, and he's going to want a girl, and she's probably not going to want him. And then he's going to be placed in a situation where he has to make a tough decision. And though there's going to be a strong person and a wise person around him, they're not going to be able to decide or to move with the compassion or the boldness that this individual, and this individual is going to like break out of his shell in the middle of everybody else. He's going to make a decision. He's going to risk it all, and he's going to be excellent at it. He's going to be great at it. And as he starts to move through this phase, he's going to go through highs and lows, and he's going to think, and he's going to remember the common person that he was before, how he's not worthy of being able to save the princess or whatever. And he's going to look backwards, and then he's going to break through that. He's going to defeat the enemy, and he's going to get the gal. And it's like now they write books on how people should tell their story to get that same type of momentum. Now it's a bigger thing now. It's like how to tell your story. You want to be a coach, how to tell your story. You want, taglines. How do you tell your story? How do you give your pitch, in a few seconds? And it's like at the end of the day, man, we all have like this story, right? And so what traction is, when I think about traction is movement. And so I guess what I'm saying, when I'm looking for traction through clarity, I'm looking for forward movement, you know. But I would have to say forward movement may not always appear to be forward. You know, it may not. It may not. You may have to sidestep sometimes in order to go forward. You may have to sit still. Like, think about Moses. Moses, go get my children from Pharaoh and take them into the wilderness that they may serve me. Moses had to go back before he could go forward, right? Because Moses, he's out in the land of the non-believers, right? He's in the land of the non-believers. Hey, what's going on, Phoenix Rambling? He's in the land of the non-believers, and God sends Moses back to Egypt. Now, he just narrowly escaped Egypt 40 years ahead of time. They were out to kill him. He had a wanted poster posted everywhere. You know, they're going to kill Moses if he ever shows up again. And Moses' forward movement was go back to Egypt, do your work there, and then take the people out of Egypt, and then to stand still at the Red Sea in between a rock and a hard place, two mountains, and a sea in front of him. And all these people he just rescued are behind him. And behind them is Pharaoh and an army whose army is so large that it sounds like thunder is on the earth. And he has to sit back and contemplate. He's got to pray. And I mean, if there was ever a time to think, I don't know if prayer is going to work, maybe that was the day. Because it's like we in this day, I'm just saying we because I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, but we as people in this day have a hard time praying for a cold to leave us. We got a hard time. Lord, please bless me so I don't have a cold. And we can't wait 1 day, 2 days, 3 days for that cold to leave us before we're like, I don't even know if the Lord's listening to me. And this man has got these men are coming to not just murder Moses, they want to kill him. They want to string him up. They want to desecrate him in front of, millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people. And he is in prayer. So talk about gaining clarity and taking a moment to think about things before you move forward, and resting in assurance in what you're meditating on to gain clarity before you move. Some men, I believe, had it not been Moses, would have said, let's just climb the mountain. Let's swim through the Red Sea. But Moses stood still. And in standing still, first he proved by going backwards, you can go forward. And then he proved by standing still, you can make traction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of values in that story. Um, when I hear it, and having read it several times, um, the clarity, was given to him because he was told what he needed to do by God, and then him moving forward with whatever it was, even though he did have the reservations, but then the trusting in it ultimately happening. And here was a guy who told God, like, I'm not the one. I can't even speak, and God appointed Aaron to him. So I get it. Um, when I look at the chart of the
The chart,
scale of
all right.
the scale of consciousness, when I look at the chart and the scale, like I said, because I can totally understand when we start to use a lot of the certain verbiage. So a lot, and this has to do with people and where they're at, and their way of being, so to speak. And so a lot of us do have to get into the point of movement,
Mm.
because for ultimately for people, movement, and just a human trait. This is not, I'm not, and because everyone including myself. So it's a human trait to want to see it. That's why prosperity, as a part of my definition, I had growth. Growth is something that you have to see, or one would want to see. You want to see it some kind of way. So if I'm looking at different contexts, growth in health, so that might be at the gym, seeing the scale move in certain directions. Growth in business, that might say I might see different sales. Growth in finances, that might mean I see growth in the bank account. Growth in real estate, in my real estate world, where I may want to see appreciation. I want, et cetera, et cetera. So I totally get it. That's why I said growth and vigor is a part of it. When I see clarity, though, when I expect to be clear on something, I don't there's not I just can't see movement as a part of it. It could be there ultimately. Ultimately we want, we can go back and forward or whatever. But I'm not even really thinking about backwards. I'm not thinking about forwards. I'm just thinking about gaining clarity, being clear on where I am and where I want to go. Everything else is possible next steps, but it comes with it's more so of where I am and where I want to go. You spoke on the last 20 years, and I definitely appreciated that in regards to your journey, so to speak, and thinking that it part of it was, and I think we all do this, especially as we're growing up, for lack of a better word, is that we like, man, did we? I, I regret this. You may at that point regrets, or maybe thinking things as failures, etc. And then that's why they're saying hindsight is 2020. Like 2020 is supposed to be perfect. I think perfect vision 2040, but we use 2020 as perfect vision. Um, and so when you look back on something and you see it, you're like, okay, as a part of my hero's journey, I did hit this, which we needed, and I think these are things that we can do more often as well. I did hit this benchmark. I did hit this goal. It didn't come at the time or the place that I thought it was going to be there, but you know, before I had reached there, but I did eventually do that. And that, so looking back on things is, you can look back with a sense of clarity. And then looking forward on things, you can, just to know where you're going, the direction and the place you're going. For me personally, and generally, I think people generally should just just gain focus, clarity, and then the movements ultimately will follow, because then at that point you can say, okay, so what's the next thing that I need to do, or what's the easiest thing I can do in order to get to the next level. So that's just how I see, gaining clarity. I think traction or action is more so of an afterthought.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I feel that that moment of space for response, and I would say that um, in my initial statement, when I was referring to clarity, I meant that as far as traction goes, I feel as if when things become clear, there you can recognize your traction, like you can see the footprints in the sand. So sometimes the clarity is like, I think you made a good point. It's like hindsight, right? You know, so I think there's a difference, and I'm trying to remember exactly how I said it, but there's a difference in clarity in what I desire to do versus clarity in the destination. And I think that the two of those things are applied differently, right? Like Moses had clarity in his destination, he did not have clarity in how he was going to get there. He was unsure as unsure can be, because getting to the wilderness by talking to Pharaoh, that seemed like a challenge. And as you mentioned, he said, I can't even speak well. So herein is the excuses. It's like, I want to be something to do. I want to, let's say I want to be somewhere. I want to be in Rome, next year. And I'm very clear on that. Let's just say I'm very clear on being in Rome next year. Now, the how to may become the thing that's most difficult for me. I may not see how to. So I love the example that my past mentor has stated, Daddy Bailey. He said this. He said he was talking about a specific goal, right? We just call it DC for short, the specific goal. He said, if you want to get to DC, you have to have a mind. And what he said for mind, I believe, is it's clarity. That's what I believe. But he said you have to have a mind. He said, and in order to get the mind, if you don't have the mind, you can just ask God for the mind. And this may not apply to every scenario or to every person, right? But in so doing, you say, well, Lord, I want to have the mind to be able to do ABC or DC. And then he said, what will end up happening is a thought will enter in your mind of something that you can do to get to DC, to get where you're going. He said, and from there, you work that thought out. You get up and you do whatever that is. He said, and then what may happen is the Lord will give you another thought on what to do. He said, and then you work that plan out too. He said, and then another thought may come out. You work that plan out too. He said, and before you know it, you have all that you need to get to DC. And I just thought that was interesting that he said it like that, because going back to Moses is like Moses knew he needed to get the children to the wilderness, and God was giving him one thing after another. Moses, go tell the children, go tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Nah, Pharaoh's like, nah, I'm not going to do it. He said, all right, Moses, this is what you're going to do. You're going to throw your staff down, your rod down. The magicians will throw theirs. Your rod will turn into a snake. Theirs will turn into a snake. And then his eats theirs and then turns back into a rod. So that's what you're going to do. Then they're going to tell you, I don't believe. And it's just like step by step. Well, Moses, this is what you're going to do. You're going to place your hand inside of your breast and you're going to pull it out. It's going to be filled with leprosy. Then you're going to place it back in and you're going to take it out and the leprosy is going to be gone. It's like one thought after the next. And Moses was only clear about one thing. I got to get the children to the wilderness. And so, in short, I'd have to say that I agree with you that movement is not clarity. But I believe
I think because just from listening, like it's essentially the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing that in regards to its clarity. Am I clear of the mind, so to speak? The mind, am I clear on this thing? You know what I mean? Like whatever the desire is, or if it's a desire for a person or if it's a destination, am I clear? Here's a level up. It doesn't even be how do I, it's like the next thing could be who does it. The Dan Sullivan, who's he's one of a huge coach in the coaching world. This guy's, he charges these people $50,000-$75,000 to be in his mastermind, and that's like one of his masterminds. He has a book where he talks about it's not how is it going to get done, but it's who is going to do it. Because if you find out who can actually do it, and oftentimes the person who can do it better than you, then it becomes more efficient. So when I'm hearing the Moses story, I go back. One of my first thoughts was him telling God, because he's like, how am I going to talk to the people, and I'm not great at speaking, and God gives him Aaron, who's a better, who's the high priest. So it's like, just from the clarity can give you a bunch, because maybe you can do it better than anybody else that you know, or whatever it is. So maybe that's the next step. But it's always, the first step would always, it's always going to be awareness. And then from the awareness, you start to gain clarity from the awareness, or you can. These are different spots. Some people get stuck because some a person might not even get to awareness. But you got awareness, then you got clarity, and then you have a choice, right? And the choice is to me is the actual start of the doing, and the and or the who's going to do it, how it's going to get done, so on and so forth. But I think we're saying the same thing. I guess I'm more so stuck on this place of clarity, because that's what we spoke about. Maybe where it should have started was from the awareness. Um, because I think as we go along these lines of whatever it is and whatever context it is that we're looking to improve upon, because the hero's journey, and then the hero's journey, what we find out is that you know, Dorothy, you had it all along. You had a way to get home the entire time, right?
Mm.
You didn't need anybody else. Like, it was all, you had it, which was click your slippers three times, whatever I mean times. But it's the awareness. Okay, so it's the I'm aware of where I am.
Hmm.
And then and there's a lot of there could be a lot of frustration at that. I know it was for me for certain things. Holy crap. Um this is the reality of the situation. When I'm taking all my feelings and biases away from it, this is the reality of the situation. Could lead to confusion. So at that point in time, what worked for me was, okay, I need to gain clarity at this point. The clarity is sifting the awareness, and then I got to sift through all this stuff, because you got your feelings, which is human nature. We're very emotional creatures. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Even as men, because we often like to put it on women and say, well, we're highly emotional. Men are highly emotional. And so now, and we rationalize it with logic. We get to logic pretty fast, but we tend to rationalize a lot of things as well. So it's like, now I gained the awareness. So here's the steps, people. I gained the awareness of this thing, whatever it may be. The same thing. I got to go to DC, or DC is where I want to be, or there's a place I need to go. And then then you find out the place is DC, right? The awareness I want to get to a place. So here's the whole bunch of overwhelmingness and confusion of this. I want to get to a place, because what place, right? I'm here. I want to get to a place. Then we find out later on that the place is DC. Okay, DC. I'm here, DC. Now here's some more stuff to get thrown out. Well, I don't know how I'm gonna get to DC. I might not have the money to get to DC. I don't have a car to get to DC. Am I comfortable going to DC alone? Like, all these things start to, these things. This is just the human nature of questioning these things. I can imagine Moses, when you're telling him to go back to get these people, like, and he did. It's like, it's questioning. Like, I'm questioning, like, I don't, am I worthy? Who am I? And who are what is this? And then you get the instruction. And I think the instruction comes from you. Finally, you just, stop talking. Just stop. And I said this. I said, and here's the thing. Here's interesting about this. Is I used a couple people as a guinea pig when they were triggered, because this is what's happening to Moses is being triggered. And I said stop to some people when they were in their moments of feeling a certain kind of way. And people will lash out at you, because if you're speaking to this doubting part in them, they can lash out at you. And this is just me. Just stop. But people have to find their own time of when and how they're going to stop. And at the time, I definitely wasn't skilled enough in order to get them to where they needed to go. Long story short, so you get from there. So now there's a lot of power in just the stillness of finding the clarity, gaining the clarity, because from awareness to clarity, it could be some time.
I love that you mentioned Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. I love that you mentioned Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. I think that it's probably something that a lot of people can see clearly. And you mentioned how it's like you had this all along. I mean, even when you look at the scriptures and you read about Moses, you see where his brother-in-law Aaron is, he's saying a whole lot of things. In the very beginning, he's speaking. Scriptures say, and Aaron said such and such, and Aaron said such and such, and then after a while, it doesn't mention Aaron saying anything anymore at all. I think that is interesting, and it's something that I've pondered about, thought about. But nonetheless, where I'm going at with this is that there's a part of us. It's not always about getting to the location. And many times in the hero's journey, it's more about the hero becoming the hero, and knowing that they are the hero. So in the very beginning, most of us who watch these movies, if you're watching these movies, you know who the hero is. I mean, they show up on the screen, you're like, that's him. That's my guy. And from the outside looking in, we can lay out the whole thing. We may be wrong about some of the pitfalls or some of the uprisings. We may be wrong because that's all the creative thought of the producer. But we know that that's the hero.
Right.
And it's very occasional that some director is going to kill the hero off before he gets to do it all. It happens every so often. I hate those movies.
What's the guy who made Pulp Fiction? Because he's known for that type of stuff.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino is known for killing off the good guy after he's done all the work. You know what I mean? He's done all the work. You look at your time, you're like, we're at 1:45. This is definitely the end. And then boom, he dies. You're like, what?
Good old Quentin.
I don't even know what happens now. What we do in the next 15 minutes in this movie.
And the sequel.
There's a sequel. But it's like you mentioned awareness. It's like the hero never knows that it's them, even though we do. We know it because we're on the outside and we see all of the visual cues and we can hear it. I remember Mike used to help me out so much. And it's not that he doesn't now. I mean, it's just that just being here in this zone right now, where we are today, whether somebody considers this to be a great deal of success or not, I really don't care. Because I feel like we are extremely successful in what we're doing. Mike would come to me, and not just Mike, but Mike, I'm going to point him out because he's sitting right there. He'll come to me and like, bro, I got to get you on. I need to get you on to a podcast. People got to hear what you're saying. I got to get you going. And when we start talking about clarity and the awareness in the hero's journey, it's like from the outside, Mike was looking at me like, this is it. You can do it. Even all of the brothers, Beethoven, Lou, they were saying the same thing. And me, on my inside, I'm like, yeah, right. I may not say it out loud. I'll never forget the first the first time I went out and I was a speaker at at the fire association's board, something like that, up in Orlando. I got hundreds of people sitting in front of me, and I'm asked to talk about something that I've never spoken about before a day in my life. I mean, and the young lady, shout out to Susan Hastings. She's like, "No, Joel, I heard you. I know you could do this. I'll even I'll even put together your PowerPoint for you." And I'm like, "Whatever, Susan, you need help. I'll be there." Talk about palpitations and stress. And then I did exactly what Mike said. I got in Orlando, I pulled up to a Starbucks, I shut the Starbucks down, stayed outside on the outside table with my tablet. Everybody's gone, lights out inside, and I recreated an entire PowerPoint. And when I went there the next morning, which was like in 4 hours, I was up until early in the morning. 4 hours later, I got up, and guess what happens? I blow the thing out the water. They're like, "We need you back again as the keynote speaker." And boom, it hit me. This is the hero's journey. I did not know it was me, but he did. Mike knew it. Susan knew it. Beethoven knew it. I couldn't see it. My viewpoint was so narrow. I was just like Moses complaining to God. I don't really speak well. They want to kill me in Egypt. Excuse, 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 excuse. I believe we find it very difficult to accept that we are individuals capable of great feats. Our mindset is so narrowly focused that many times we count ourselves out before we've even gotten in. This is the big thing that I'm taking away from this clarity conversation, is not just that I have clarity of where I'm going or even clarity of how I'm doing it, but that through the clarity, I gain clarity of who I am. And I began to walk in who I am. I become the guy that does the thing that people say is the guy that did the thing.
And I think that's awesome. I think I have the exact opposite way of being. So for me, um, I already know like I'm the guy.
I love it too.
And that came from how I saw myself when I was a child. And really came from my grandfather, from telling me, right? So my grandfather told me. So I had an issue of like not wanting to be in the spotlight. So I would go out of my way to allow people to feel, you know, not feel uncomfortable when I'm around, kind of deal. And still to this day, there's still times when I'm just like, ah. So and I had to quickly learn discernment of when it's okay to shine, when it's not okay to, not okay, but when it's okay to shine, and when it's great to other people shine. So I had a different kind of process growing up. It's interesting. Lil Duval spoke about it as well. Lil Duval said his mother put him in I forget. I think it was like a Goodwill thing where where people were basically like giving him food because they didn't have cans of food. But the way he framed it in his mind was, oh, these people are here for me. So he so he came from this spot of where he always felt as if he was a star and the people were coming there for him. So it's interesting like how and I think this has a lot to do with nurture, how we're nurtured and how we are um some of the beliefs that we have as we're growing up to say, you know, and I think it's a confidence and competence type thing to where because Lord knows I had the confidence, but I probably didn't have the competence at the time. And you definitely were competent, but you were finding your confidence. And so you just hope that, and so you gain all this knowledge in the meantime, and it kind of puts you where you are. Uh, a part of the hero's journey is understanding that you already have these things within you. it may not necessarily be refined. It may, you're going to go through some challenges that are going to bring it out of you. It's going to show your character. Some people have to go through challenges to see their character. So it helps to bring it out. It helps to make them say, okay, I can actually do that, or I have done it. But going up into this challenge, it's like, I don't know. So I think it's an interesting perspective for people to have amongst themselves, and ultimately, I think it's all really getting to the same thing. It's the saying that you have something there, you have a purpose, taking the time out to figure out what it is and being intentional about it, because I think that's the next thing with clarity. Clarity allows you to become intentional on how it is that you move. So I think that was awesome, man. What a dope conversation.
Listen, man, we got to take this a little bit further.
Yeah, I got it. I don't know if you saw
Oh
me,
man,
I got to
we
get
have
up
to
out
come
of
back
here.
next time, because gosh, what just came out right now was fire. For everyone that's watching or watches the replay, I hope you caught it. But you can see what Mike just said. I wish I could roll back the tape, because he was like, he grew up being nurtured to be the confident individual. And I grew up and like, I didn't have that nurture. I mean, of course, my mother was a great mother. I'm not taking anything away from her, but I didn't grow up like being groomed, like be confident. You're the it in the room. And these are two different models of individuals right here. So hopefully we'll be able to talk.
And that goes into the whole single mother epidemic that we have going on. But that's definitely a conversation that can be had at a later date. Listen, I appreciate you all. I apologize. I feel like we were just getting cracking, but these things happen.
Oh, so man, we're gonna do it, Mike. We're gonna have to do your old school way of things, where we go 6 hours and then divide it up, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate you all for checking in. If you did check in, leave some comments. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
The next one.